Payday 3 is confirmed to be releasing in 2023, and in this video we're going to be going over what to expect from Payday 3, mainly looking at when it will release, the platforms it will release on, and the price that it will cost, and yeah, how you'll be able to get Payday 3. That'll be the main focus of this video. So yeah, that is the general idea for this video, and let's waste no more time and let's get into what to expect from Payday 3 before it releases in 2023. Let's get into it. So first of all, we'll talk about the release date, and as of right now, all we know is 2023 as the release window, but I think it's highly likely this will be releasing at the end of 2023. I can't see it releasing any time earlier than September, and even September is probably a little bit early. I think October, November and December, probably November to be honest, is the best time for this game to release, and probably the most likely time for it to release. Generally, games tend to release at the end of the year unless they are delayed from being, maybe they'll release earlier in the year or they'll release at the end of a year unless they get some sort of delay. We see with Dead Island 2, for example, it was going to release at the beginning of 2023 and then it did get a delay, so it's possible it gets delayed into 2024. We don't know, but as of right now, I would say with the release window we have of 2023, I would say any time after September is a likely time for Payday 3 to release. Now, it is also possible it won't all release at the same time. We may even get the case where it releases on PC first and then releases on consoles later down the line, or we may get the case where it releases on PC and the next generation consoles and releases on older consoles later down the line, or maybe Nintendo Switch later down the line. As of right now though, Nintendo Switch isn't confirmed, so I wouldn't think that is likely, but yeah, we'll just have to see what happens in terms of the release. But yeah, anytime after September is when we can see the game release in 2023, no matter the platform, to be honest, since right now we have no idea. And well, that does bring us on to the platforms, and in terms of the platforms, at the moment we just know PlayStation, Xbox and PC. That is all the developers have said in terms of the platforms that the game could release on. Now, this is where things are obviously, could it really change here? We don't know what generation of consoles the game will release on. First of all, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S is an absolute given. Even if they didn't release a next generation version, you can still play it on those consoles, but they will release a next generation version for this game. There's no way they wouldn't do that, but it is obviously, it looks like it hasn't been decided maybe, or they obviously haven't confirmed yet whether it will release on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. PC is certain. In terms of the launcher it will release on, we do know that this is Steam. We haven't seen anything for Epic Games. Yes, it might release on that later down the line, but it is definitely going to be on Steam. There is already a page on Steam for Payday 3 where you can wishlist the game. There's no pre-orders yet, we'll get onto that later, but you can wishlist the game, and there is also a forum for it on Steam and everything like that, and they have confirmed that it will be on Steam, and they want to keep that as their home for Payday for the future. So yeah, Steam is a given, which is really nice. I think everyone wants it to be on Steam rather than Epic Games or any other launcher, so yeah, Steam is where it's going to be, but like I said, Epic Games is a possibility, we just don't know yet. So yeah, when it comes to the consoles, PlayStation 5 is confirmed, that's an obvious one. Xbox Series X and S is definitely confirmed. PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, I would say there's a very, very good chance it will release on those consoles. At the moment, we don't know how graphically advanced Payday 3 will be. If it's anything like Payday 2, it will obviously be on those consoles, but I would expect it to be quite different. Payday 2 came out in, 2012, 2013, so I would expect it to advance quite a lot from then, I would hope, personally. So yeah, I would say there's still a good chance it will release on those consoles. The only thing I could see being an issue is that it is obviously first person, and if you're going to have a first person game, you ideally need 60 frames per second. To get 60 frames per second on a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One on a game releasing in 2023 is going to be tough, and a game like Payday 3, a game with a pretty high budget, is going to be pretty tough for it to run on those consoles, but I think there's a good chance. A lot of the games still release on them. Hogwarts Legacy, that's a massive game. Obviously, that will be 30 frames per second, though. This is where my point comes in. Obviously, it needs to be 60, really. It's possible it could be 30 frames per second. I wouldn't really say that's great of an experience, to be honest, in a first-person game. I personally need at least 60 frames per second. I can play on 30. I just don't like it as much, and I find it, a bit frustrating. In games like Fallout 4, I find it to be a bit annoying, but obviously, if it is 30, then that's better than it not being on those consoles, in my opinion. Those that have next-generation consoles, of course, wouldn't really want it to release on those unless they've got friends on them, because obviously people would argue that sets back the next generation consoles, since they're having to put time into optimizing the game for the older consoles instead of putting all their resources into optimizing it for the next generation consoles, allowing for the best experience on those consoles. So yeah, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, it's possible. 30 FPS or 60 FPS on those, I don't know. 30 FPS is probably the likely outcome, to be honest. We'll just have to see how that that plans out, because as of right now, we just know PlayStation and Xbox, and obviously PC is a given. But I do just want to talk about the next generation consoles and how the game could work on those. We see with every next generation game these days, different graphical modes that you can support. Now, with Payday 3 being a first-person game, 120 frames per second is possible. I think that's a possibility, but at the same time, I don't know if it will happen, since obviously the graphics could be very, very strong, making 120 frames per second pretty unlikely. I think there'll probably just be the 60 frames per second mode, maybe. We'll just have to see. Maybe it'll be a 60 FPS mode and a 120 FPS mode. Maybe there'll be a 30 frames per second mode with ray tracing and everything like that, but I find that unlikely since I don't think anyone would use it, so I would consider that maybe a waste of time, to be honest. We'll just have to see how that does plan out. But yeah, the possibility for multiple graphical modes on the next generation consoles is definitely a possibility, and of course on PC you'll get all of the graphical settings that you always get with every game, and that will be on Steam. So now let's talk about the pricing of the game. Now when it comes to Payday 2, we can't really compare that at all to Payday 3, since obviously it's such an old game, the price has dropped so much. You can pick up Payday 2 for about 50p on Steam, so it's really not worth comparing the prices. I do think that the price of £60, £70 or £50 is definitely likely. I would say maximum of 60, to be honest. I don't think they'd go for 70 with Payday 3. I can't see that being the case on the next generation consoles. On PC it's usually 50 or 60. It wouldn't usually go above that. I've never seen it go above that on PC, but of course it could. That's always a possibility, but I would say 50 to 60 pounds is likely, and of course if we're lucky we'll maybe get 35 pounds or $35 or something like that, but I find that pretty unlikely. A modern game like Payday 3, as big as it is to release in 2023, I think 35 is pretty unlikely, but with games like Sons of the Forest, that was 25, so it's always possible. We'll just have to see. It's possible it'll be cheaper on PC, I think that's very likely, and then a bit more expensive for the next generation consoles, and probably the same price on PC as the older consoles if it does end up releasing on the older consoles. And of course I think a physical copy of this is very, very likely. I think there is there's going to be a physical edition of the game. We've seen that with PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions of the game. There is a physical copy. I think there will be a physical copy of Payday 3 without a doubt, and I do think there'll be multiple versions of the game. I think there'll probably be a deluxe edition or something like that. Might not be called that, but basically that's what it'd be. And there's possible there'll also be a collector's edition of the game. For collectors out there, you might be in luck with Payday 3 and then maybe a collector's edition of the game. We'll just have to wait to see how that all turns out and how that all works with the different editions of the game on the different platforms. The editions of the game tend to vary on platform to platform, but especially from PC to console. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how that all plans out. But that does just about wrap up things here, to be honest. That was me just going over the general, pricing of the game, the platforms the game will release on, and the different editions of the game, and how all that will work, and what you can expect from it with Payday 3, and of course when the game could release. So yeah, that was what to expect from Payday 3 when it releases in hopefully 2023, unless there is of course some sort of delay, which I really, really hope won't be the case, but we'll just have to wait and see how everything works out. And yeah, that does just about wrap up things here. Now, I have done a video just like this, but instead I'm going over everything we know so far about Payday 3, and if you're interested in watching that, then a link to that video is on the screen now, and you can go ahead and join me over there.